it's really a little early, but we have a lot to get done today. So the first thing, I think Gil is going to come up and we're going to officially welcome Melissa. We'll get the goat out and come on up, Melissa.
All right. Melissa, good morning. We're glad to have you here. For those of you who haven't met Melissa, she's an attorney with Shell & Shell Law Firm. She has visited a number of times, and she has some background that dovetails perfectly with our foster business, our adoption day. She was actually a CPS caseworker at one time, and has a depth of knowledge that we can probably mine a little bit. Melissa, you've been invited to join Daybreak Rotary, actually to join Rotary International. As a member of this club, you are a member of a very large organization of people dedicated to service. You were invited because members believe that you, in your personal and professional life, exemplify the ideals of Rotary and primarily service above self. You are in a professional service, you've been in professional services, and we believe that you are service-oriented. You are expected as a member to participate in the club meetings, the club activities, and in your personal and professional life to project those ideals of Rotary and to make Rotary proud by your service. We ask that you tell us if you believe that you can do those things, and you will indeed do everything you can to promote service above self and Daybreak Rotary.
Absolutely.
And I'll ask the membership to stand for a moment, please. And I ask the members, will you do everything within your power to advance Melissa and her Rotary life to become a true Rotarian with a capital R? And if you will do that, say I will. We can do a little bit better than that. Say I will.
I will.
Very good. If I can find a place to pin without harming the wrist there, I will bestow upon you the official pin of Rotary International. There is a full kit of information that I will get to you in time. And welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to the opportunity. You know, I love what you guys stand for. I was unaware of what Rotary really was before I started joining you guys. I'm super excited about it. You know, I'm a woman of faith. I'm a strong Christian woman, and so I just feel like we can do really great things together, and I'm looking forward to it.
Right. I know we will.
Yeah, thanks.
And I'll let Neal introduce his guest.
Okay. And, yeah, there's a little picture. Okay. Good morning, Marble Falls. Our speaker this morning is Trey Berry. Trey is a realtor here in town. He's also the 2021 president of the Highland Lakes Association of Realtors. And he has some experience in real estate in this area and is going to tell us what's going on. So
that's right.
Come on up.
Well, thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you. I think this is good right here. Well, as you just mentioned, my name is Trey Berry, president this year of the local Highland Lakes Association of Realtors. A little backstory, just so y'all know who you're talking to. I've been out in our area since 2011, and I actually moved out here to sell real estate. I'm not sure how many realtors can say that. Maybe more now than ever. Our membership has absolutely exploded over the last about year and a half. I've served on committees of some sort, whether it be technology or our MLS committee or our budget finance committee since about 2013. So I've been pretty in tune with what's happening at the association level, as well as doing business in the market. And man, I'll bet 4 years ago, our membership was at 700, maybe 750 total members. That's affiliates, primary brokers, secondary brokers that are coming from Austin and San Antonio. And as of last month, the numbers were close to 1,300 members. And if you think about our little hill country hideaway out here, that's a lot of realtors to come and be a part of what's going on out here. But I think everybody sees it. We've always, our fear of of being a local realtor out here, and I say fear, for a lot of people, they fear the change. And we've had people come out from Austin, up from San Antonio, even as far as Waco and Dallas. They want to tap into our local real estate market just because it's so amazing, as we know, because we all live here. But Coleman Team Realty is the group that I am with, and I have been since 2011. And so I've been tried and true. It's just loyalties for me. I know a lot of realtors jump offices, seems like every couple of years. But for me, it's that loyalty. It's a predetermined response. I get an offer and I'm like, I'm staying true to where I am. And not to mention, nobody's been able to give me a better offer. So there's that as well. But again, I thank y'all for having me. And I'm glad to stand up here and talk to you about real estate in our market, and even those just beyond our market. And I'll start there. I mean, we've all heard stories about how crazy Austin's been, and you know, homes selling for maybe $100,000+ over what they were asking. Well, I've got to actually experience that with one particular client. We were looking for investment property, and we were looking from Lago down to Lakeway. I don't go beyond that because that's just beyond my expertise, and I wouldn't be doing my client a service. But I go as far as Lago and Lakeway, and we literally, folks, over the course of about 3 months, lost 12 deals. And again, this was an investment property. She was doing short-term rentals, and so it was all about the numbers at the end of the day, right? You know, are you willing to pay more? Yeah, if the numbers still work, she can make it work. Well, y'all, we went as high as $150,000 over asking, and still were not the highest bidders on a number of those homes. Because for her, it made sense. As an end user, someone just buying that home, I don't know how the numbers work. Maybe they were investors too, and obviously cash bumping us out. But that in its own right was a market that I had never experienced. And I would go as far to say, you know, many realtors probably haven't. I know Austin can be cutthroat from time to time, but they're, you know, showing up, a house goes on the market on Thursday, we see it Friday, submit an offer. They have a deadline on Sunday, and we are one of 36 offers, and we're still outbid. I mean, that's wild. So I kept anticipating that to come this way. I never really experienced that. Yes, there was some bidding wars and whatnot, but typically you were one of maybe 2 or 3 contracts on the table. And, you know, as far as being a part of a winning contract, the most I saw was, you know, $20,000, maybe $50,000 over asking. And mind you, there's maybe realtors out here that had different experiences, but me personally, that was kind of what I was feeling and hearing as well. But I know for many, the concern was, well, what's happening with this market? Is it ever going to go back down? What about appraisals, right? When I was working over there in the Lakeway Lago area, trying to win some of those houses, because it was a battle, we had to sign waivers of appraisals. The seller would not even consider our offer unless we signed a waiver, because they knew that their house was going to go for 150, 200, maybe even 300 over asking. One of them literally went 400,000 over asking. I think it was $1.2 million. We offered $1.35 million, and it sold for $1.6 million. And so all the things that contribute to that, and the reason I talk about that market is because it's a ripple effect, right? A lot of those folks were selling their houses because they could maximize it, and they were coming out here before our market caught on. You know, they'd come over here and move into Delaware Springs, or, you know, and buy something for $350. They just sold their house for $8, you know, and their plan is to sell there, hang out here for a couple of years, and then maybe move back when things settle out. Maybe not. Maybe they'll come out here and love it like we do, and they'll end up staying. But the housing market has been interesting, and depending on who you ask, there's reasons for that. Naturally, the common sense one would be interest rates are low, so we're going to have a lot of buyers. But the influx of buyers that we've had, the low interest rates can't justify that. And so, of course, as an association, and just me personally, because I like to know what's going on, did a little research. And many of you probably know this, but in Austin, you know, we've had Amazon, Apple, Oracle, and Tesla all decide to call Austin home for their headquarters. Well, that same client that I was helping buy investment property for is friends with the gentleman that hires for Amazon. Okay, so this is a he said, she said situation, mind you. But her friend that hires for them said that this was back in March, he had hired 2,200 employees from out of state to come work for Amazon. That wasn't including who he'd hired here. That was just outside of it. And mind you, not all of those are going to be families, of 3 or 4, whatever the case is. Some of them are going to be singles, probably 20s, living in apartments. But regardless, that affects the housing market, which affects me and my livelihood, and of course y'all too, on some level. And that's just Amazon too. So that's not counting Tesla, Oracle, and all of those. So just interesting information that I'm not sure that y'all had maybe thought about and contributed to what's going on out here. But, it wasn't just Texas that was being affected. My wife is from California. Mind you, she moved here 10 years ago. So I tell her she got out early. So, but we went back there just, I guess about a month and a half ago, and their market was similar. Mind you, it was Northern California, but they were having people from the South just flood in. Their homes weren't sitting on the market for more than a week. The same was true for Indiana and so many other states. So it's interesting to see that the housing as a whole, I know sometimes we get in our bubble and we think that it's just us, everybody wants to come to Texas, but the reality is it was happening in a lot of places. Where they're all coming from, I don't know. I don't know where they're all coming from, or, if they're selling in LA, who's buying their house? If they're all going other places, who wants to go to LA right now? I don't know. But as far as our local market goes, again, I told y'all we have about 1,300 members at the moment. And I believe, just based on data, that our market is beginning to soften some. Prices of acreage and all that has gone through the roof, which I'm sure you've seen. A year ago, you're looking at 10, 12,000 an acre, maybe 15 if it was really nice, and maybe as high as 18 if it had live water on it, right? Well, now just acreage tract, say you're looking at 30 acres. You're going to be looking at 21,000, 22,000 an acre for large acre tracts. We're even up to 100. 100 acres, it could be as high as 22 plus an acre. In fact, in Highland Hills, just up the road here, there's a 7-acre tract that was for sale for over 50,000 an acre. And so I don't know if they missed the window. I will say that in recent months, as y'all probably noticed, you look at a house that goes on the market, if you can catch one, and a day or two later, they're off the market, maybe a week later. And now you'll see that there's some they've been on the market for a week or two, maybe 3 weeks, some of them even a month. And so, if we just look at the data, that suggests that maybe that buyers are thinning out a little bit, or at least normalizing. One comment I kept hearing from realtors and non-realtors was, we just don't have any inventory. We just don't have it. I just can't find anything for my buyers. And of course, I like to know why that is. And so I went to the local association staff and we looked up the numbers. How many listings are we getting a month? Because we just put in place a new program for all of our members just a year ago. Well, at that time, we're paying for this membership per new residential listing. So I already knew those numbers. We're averaging 50 to 70 new listings a month at that time. So over the last 3 or 4 months, we've been averaging 160 to 170 new listings. We're talking almost triple, right? Well over double the amount of homes mainly being listed. And acreage tracts are in there as well. But inventory, I wouldn't say, I guess it's subjective to the amount of buyers, right? To the demand. So is inventory less? Yes, but it's also more than we've ever had. So that's just interesting to kind of take in, just some data for you. And I have not checked the numbers this month, so I don't know if we have 160 new listings. But I think it's slowing down slightly. I haven't seen them coming up quite as often. It seemed like every other day I was getting an email, new listing. And now it seems to be spreading out a little. I get maybe a couple a week, at least within the criteria that I've set up for my clients. But you know, it's been an interesting time between inventory and construction costs, which me and Neal were discussing. He's living at the moment with having to deal with construction. I'm sure Buck is too. But the the cost of materials are outrageous. And my clients ask me all the time, especially those that are wanting to list. I have 3 to 4 new listings coming up in the next 30 days, and they're all asking me what's going to happen. What should we do? Should we wait, or should we go ahead and seize this moment? And of course, everyone wants their realtor to have a crystal ball, which we don't. And so, of course, that's why I guess I'm so interested in the data and what's going on. And with inflation where it is, and just imports and exports where they are, I don't know if y'all talked to anybody in that arena. The car business, they can't get chips to finish out the vehicles. If you drive by a Ford and Chevy dealership, they're almost look like vacant lots because they can't get what they need, and they may not have any until September. We went to get a new lawnmower the other day, stopped by Kubota and John Deere, and all they had were commercial lawnmowers. And when I asked him when he was going to get a regular, riding 0-turn lawnmower, he said, buddy, it's going to be September, October. And so for me, looking at that kind of information matched with material costs and things in that same line of discussion, it makes me wonder what's going to happen, because that does, again, like everything else, there's a ripple effect. So if our local businesses can't get the product they need to sell, that means they can't employ their workers because they don't have a job to do. And if they don't have a job to do, then they don't get to stay there and work. How are they paying their bills? And so on and so on. I don't know if that's going to come to a halt or not. To me, that's the biggest threat that the housing market really has. Because again, everything else on paper and on the surface looks great. Rates are low. Over the last 3 or 4 months, conventional loans have gone through the roof. So people are having the cash to come to the table to at least pay, on average 10 to 20% down for those conventional loans, where in the past, some of those federal programs have been higher, FHA loans, and so on. So we are in interesting times. One other thing I'll tell you, because I know it's 8 o'clock, I want to be good stewards of your time, is just a little information about realtors in your community, because I think there's a lot of people that don't know how involved we are. It's really interesting just to see and hear this morning. I have been to other Rotary clubs, and they're very similar. Realtors are very consumer facing, which in turn becomes community facing, right? We're thinking about our consumers' fiduciary duties, treating people the way that we would treat ourselves in any situation. And of course, for us, our arena that we typically have to get involved in, whether or not we like it or not, is politics. And so constantly fighting things like property taxes, transfer taxes, hotel taxes. We have a team at the Texas level that is constantly reviewing bills, fighting for that. And on a local level, we fund that. So especially in our local association, we believe very strongly in fighting for our property rights and funding those men and women that are going to the table and fighting for us. Realtors are one of the largest lobby groups in the nation. And I forget the order. It's been a little time since I went through this, but I believe it was, I think it was the medical. There was a medical team of lobbyists. Then I believe it may have been attorneys. And then beyond that, realtors were next in the lineup. Partially due to numbers, I'd imagine. There are a lot of us, as everybody says out here, even in Horseshoe Bay, I think there's well over 150 realtors in that little town. So, but we go to fight for property rights and our consumers and our clients, and because we care about the same things. We're property owners. We don't want our taxes to go up. We don't want to have to pay those transfer taxes anytime you sell a property. And it's a significant amount. If they'd have passed the the last transfer tax they tried to push through, that would have been a total, I think it was almost 8% on every sale that you as a seller just, I mean, your hard-earned money just gone. And so just know that realtors do more than just help people buy and sell property. We're on the front lines, but in a different way, helping our professional teams protect what is property and your property rights. So with a little bit more time left, does anybody have any questions? Because I know typically y'all like a Q&A at the end. Go ahead.
That inventory, you're talking about 170, that's about double what it was 2 or 3 years ago. Most of the people leaving the area, or selling houses, or most of new housing.
Sure.
Combination, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good question. So that number, I'm sure, yeah, it's that 60 to 70 number of listings that were coming up every month. That was just last year. And so now that it's 160, 170, it varies. We have had a lot of new construction, probably more now than we've maybe ever had. I know last year alone, Horseshoe Bay, again, that's kind of my bread and butter, but they had more new building permits than they'd ever had in any given year. And so there is a lot of new construction, especially with Greg Ranch coming in, but they haven't really hit the ground running yet. But I think a lot of people are leaving. There are some that are staying. I don't have those stats in front of me. I think it's more plausible for people here to sell and then stay, whether that be build or buy something new or whatnot. I mean, I had a client that I helped do that. We sold their house in Marble Falls and they bought an acreage tract with a house in Burnett. You know, so they weren't necessarily leaving, but maybe a slight relocation. I think a lot of the people that are selling in Austin are just leaving because they don't want to, I mean, they want to play that game. You know, they're going to be one of the 36 buyers that submitted an offer. So I think a lot of those folks probably came out here or they went somewhere else, maybe out of state. Any other questions? Sir?
When you represent a buyer and you're going to bid several $100,000 over the listing price, all you know is the listing price. You don't know how many other people make bids. You, as with your own experience, I guess you can just kind of tell your buyer what you think is going to help them. How hard is it to convince a buyer to put down several $100,000?
Well, good question. I personally, this is my thing. I have never actually sold a home in my entire career, right? So my job is to inform my buyer and give them the information that they need to make an informed decision. Yes, I'm going to give advice and I'm going to give them information, but I would never tell somebody, you need to come in here and offer them $75,000 over asking if you want to win this thing. Now, I may walk them through a scenario and say, you know, I have one of two roles. This is my job. I can either get you this house and give you the information you want to win this house, or I can win you this house at a set price, right? You're going to lay your head down tonight and you're going to have peace knowing that if you submit that number and you don't win it, you're not going to lose sleep over it. Whereas if you're like, I don't care what the number is, I want that house right now, and it's an emotional buy, okay, well, that's a different conversation. Does that make sense? But I don't sway people. I consider myself a consultant. You tell me what you're trying to accomplish. If I do see something that I would question in that, I will tell them. If I say, hey, look, I know you really want this, but you're really going to be overspending here. It's still their decision. I think I talk people out of houses more than I talk them into them. I'm like, hey, man, this is a money pit. Are you sure you want to do this? But any other questions? Did you have one?
I was going to ask, you know, you hear people talk about the housing bubble.
Sure.
And everyone talks about eventually it's going to pop. And when that happens, how does that affect you personally as far as like, does it go from like, I guess you're the bait, all the sharks come to you, like I need it. Do you have to switch your role into looking for clients as opposed to them coming to you when that happens?
You know, I can't say that I've ever been a part of a housing bubble pop, so to speak.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't in the business after 7 and 8. Okay. So I didn't get to be around for that, unfortunately. But just as far as the the business side of it and how I get clients and things like that, the last 2-3 years, I have not had to go get any business. It is all referral based, repeat customers and clients. I may have had 1 or 2, that were just kind of cold leads out of nowhere that found me online that, hey, I liked your picture. I want to have a conversation. I mean, really, that's how they pick up. But beyond that, that's about it. So.
Thank you so
Yes,
much.
thank you.
You're so